Good morning and welcome to the latest Waterfront webinar from the Waterfront Conference Company on transport-led development in Wales. And thank you very much for everybody joining this morning. My name is Michael Whitaker. I'm the chair of the Chartered Institute of Logistics and Transport in Wales, with a membership of over 13,000 across the UK, across all modes. And I'm very pleased today to be invited to chair this discussion on this important subject for transport and wider society in Wales. Waterfront and myself have assembled a really good panel this morning to take you through this 1-hour webinar with a number of really good key people. So I've got Michelle Wright, for Deputy Wales Director for the Community Transport Association. I've got Adrian Carrington, Head of Station Infrastructure at Transport for Wales, and Kevin Collin, Director Enhancements from the Integrated Infrastructure Team of Network Rail. And so welcome, thank you very much for that. And please, during the webinar this morning, please put your questions and comments in the Q&A function, which you'll see at the bottom of the Zoom screen there for you. And again, thank you very much for joining. And we'll be covering, things of the latest insight on transport projects delivered in Wales, the growth opportunities as they unlock across the UK, and understanding infrastructure requirements to meet Wales and their future needs, and delivering those, and not forgetting the importance of people and freight in placemaking across Wales. So without further ado, I'd like to bring in this morning to kick off a particularly poignant, and without stealing Michelle's thunder this morning, that it's Community Transport Week, as you'll see in a minute. Michelle White, the Deputy Wales Director for the CTA in Wales. Michelle.
Thank you so much, Michael. I'm really delighted to be here with you this morning. I appreciate this opportunity. So as Michael said in his introduction, I work for the Community Transport Association, and this is a member-led registered charity that works across the UK. So we have around, I think it's about 1,200 members at the last count. In Wales, which is where I'm based, we have about 100 members. And these are organisations from the voluntary and community and social enterprise sector who provide community-led transport solutions. So it was really interesting to be invited here today, really just to talk about how transport isn't just about getting from A to B, as we all know, but it is an enabler. It's about fairness and opportunity for all. So at the Community Transport Association, we really see ourselves as leading a movement of third sector transport provision. We're a unified voice for our members. We work with different governments, and we also really try to drive up standards in community transport as well. So for the last 30 years, we've been providing the Minibus Driver Awareness Scheme, which is sort of like a gold standard recognised minibus driver training programme. And that's really just focusing so strongly on passenger care and safety in our sector. But really, I suppose the key unifying ethos of the community transport sector is around co-developing transport solutions with people, because actually if you put people at the heart of those transport solutions, you're going to design services that meet their needs and that people will use and can use. So I think for us, we just want to have people to have as much choice in their transport options as possible. And why is this an issue for us? Well, I think, as you're all probably very aware, transport-related social exclusion is a massive issue. For example, poverty in Wales has not really changed a lot in the past 2 decades, despite various interventions to alleviate it. And this means that people often have real limitations in terms of the opportunities that they can take up, whether that's educational opportunities, employment opportunities, or simply just being part and parcel of their local community. So, for example, in Wales, 1 in 5 people currently live in poverty. This totals around 700,000 individuals, 400,000 of whom are working age adults. And you can imagine what impact that poverty has on their opportunities. There are also 200,000 children in poverty and 100,000 older age people. So it's a huge, wide-ranging issue facing our communities, really. I think it was the Bevan Foundation who did one of their snapshots of poverty in Wales. They do this on a sort of annual cycle, and they found that 1 in 8 adults, or 13% of the adult population in Wales, had been unable to make essential journeys, such as to work or to a medical appointment, due to the cost of transport. And we know that obviously poverty affects certain groups of people more than others. So a significant proportion of people who are disabled, for example, are living in poverty. 32% of disabled people are affected by that. And that is much higher than the non-disabled population. We know that disabled people face what's called a transport accessibility gap. This refers to the disparity in the number of journeys that disabled people make compared to non-disabled people, for example. So disabled people make 38% fewer trips. Now, this can be for a variety of reasons. It could be for poverty, but equally it can be simply there are inaccessible transport options, or the infrastructure doesn't sort of like make it easy for them to travel around. It could be a wide range of issues, a lack of suitable alternative options as well. So really, what I would say is that this is why community transport matters and why we're so pleased to be here this morning. Because when we think about the wider bus network, that is often the main means of travel for people on lower incomes. Obviously, rail transport is incredibly, invaluable as well. But when we're thinking about transport-related social inclusion, that bus network is so vital for people. And community transport is an integral part, or should be seen as an integral part, of that wider bus network. So community transport can be a real lifeline for people. People often only hear about community transport when they're at real need. So they might have been newly diagnosed with a health condition or a disability. They might be caring for elderly relatives, or, as I said earlier, it could be people in poverty who perhaps had been in forced car ownership, where they were having to pay out for maintaining a vehicle simply because it was essential, but perhaps they're no longer able to do that because their income level has dipped below a certain threshold. So this is really where community transport comes into its own, really, because it provides low cost, accessible, inclusive services. It is a very, very broad spectrum. When I talk about community transport, it's not like a uniform service, a one model fits all. These are schemes that have really been developed in response to local needs. So they develop very differently in different areas. Some of them are very hyper-local. So this could be a volunteer car scheme. It could have been set up by a couple of individuals just to help their neighbours initially get to GP appointments or to the shops. But it could equally be a dial-a-ride scheme, running community bus services, flexi services on behalf of Transport for Wales, community car services. There is a very broad spectrum within that community transport sector. But what I would just emphasise is how the services that are developed are really embedded in their local communities. So it is National Community Transport Week, as you might have gathered from my background this week. And I love this week because I get to go out and visit many different community transport operators across Wales. And I often meet operators who've been embedded in their community for 25 years. I met one that had been there for 40 years. So they have that community sort of buy-in. And these are really sort of like quite cost-effective services from a transport provision point of view, because they really do operate on a shoestring. They're very professional services. They may get some bus service support grant income in, but they will do an enormous amount of fundraising on their own behalf to supplement that as well. So what are some of the defining features then of community transport? I would say, low cost, because they do focus on connecting people and places, not on profit. They're very much about trying to keep fares affordable so that they don't exclude anybody from using their services. Some community transport schemes might run a hardship fund, for example. There's a lovely scheme in Hey Dial-A-Ride, which fundraises to have a little pot of money so that if they find that some people that they've been supporting perhaps have dropped off from journeys, they can contact them and just check how they are and whether perhaps finances is sort of restricting their journeys that they're making. And they will then cover the cost of journeys for those individuals if they feel that there is that need there. So obviously community transport operators, they don't all have that luxury of being able to do that, but it's really just to get across the point that they are so committed to actually making sure that transport is inclusive and accessible. It is a door-to-door service, or as many community transport operators would say, it's a door-through-door service. So they will help somebody perhaps get to their local supermarket to do their weekly shop, get them back home and actually carry the shopping in and put it on the kitchen table for them, make sure that they're safely settled in at home. So it's a really reassuring, friendly service for people who need it, who might not be able to use mainstream public transport. And it's very responsive to need, as I said. So a lot of community transport services do develop other broader services around the transport element. They might do prescription collection and delivery services, Meals on Wheels, supermarket shops for people who can't actually get out on the bus, group outings to alleviate social isolation, and telephone befriending as well. So it's a broad spectrum. I think as well, our logo for CT Week this year is more than a minibus, because there is sometimes this perception that actually it's just about getting certain demographics of the population out and about. So people sometimes think it's simply for older people or simply for disabled people, but actually there's such a broad spectrum who are affected by transport-related social inclusion. And a lot of operators do support people to access employment. So they'll take people to job centres if they need to sign on, for example, or they'll take people to interviews so that they have a chance of getting employment, as well as taking people to work on a more regular basis. So some operators have run shuttle type services to get people to sites of employment. It's very variable, but it is all about just trying to meet needs in whatever way for their particular local community. And I think for us at the community transport sector, I think what we would like to see is to see community transport recognised and valued and appropriately funded as part of the wider bus passenger network. Obviously, the sector is charitable, so any money that it makes, effectively, it invests back in its services. But what we're finding is that the current context for community transport services is incredibly challenging at the moment. The National Council for Voluntary Organisations, for example, said, for the voluntary sector more generally, 2025 is the year of the big squeeze, because we're seeing operational costs rising, demand for services rising, and yet the funding that is available being squeezed, reduced, and greater competition for the limited government funding that is available for community transport. So operators, for example, in Wales, their main source of core funding is the bus service support grant, administered through different local authorities on behalf of Welsh Government. And just to put in context, that funding amounts to about 1.3 million per year for the community transport sector in Wales. And that's in the context of the wider Transport for Wales budget for capital and revenue, which I think was 885 million this was it this current financial year or last financial year? But that just gives you a little bit of an indication into sort of like how limited the funding is for the sector. If you think that that's shared across over 100 schemes, and there's more community transport schemes developing every day. We just supported one scheme in Bala to get started. So again, that'll be applying to that bus service support grant pot, which is fantastic. On the one hand, you know, we love to see new groups develop, but it does then mean that the amount of funding available for other existing schemes that apply to that funding is going to be slightly lower because it has to be shared across a bigger sector effectively. So we would like to see more investment and just a recognition that community transport is an integral part of transport provision if we are seriously committed to an inclusive network. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Excellent, and I hope everybody on the call this morning from PR agencies, consultancies, and other societies take note of this in terms of dispelling the myths that CT is just a minibus and only just for older people, and that it is an essential and enabling part of the network to address the accessibility needs and gap and foster inclusion for all. I think that's absolutely clear, and everybody should be scribbling down on the notepads now for that. And the recognition in the forthcoming regional transport plans that Michelle touched upon that are now working their way through obviously Welsh Government and out through the 4 corporate joint committees. Again, it's not just a rural thing. It's about urban areas and deprived areas as well, and it comes in many shapes and forms. You know, including things like hidden disabilities, which can affect up to 20% of the population. And I know Adrian and others will touch upon that in terms of their placemaking activities later on in this webinar. And finally, the other thing, just to expand a little bit upon the excellent points that Michelle made, was around bus franchising as we come up through to the next Senedd elections, in terms of ensuring that transport solutions work for all, and the need for investment in community-led and delivered local transport across the whole of Wales for all of the groups, and that doesn't get lost in translation, particularly through obviously Wales's commitment to the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act and the Social Partnership Act, and developing the third sector is absolutely critical. So many thanks, Michelle, for that. Excellent, and I hope you're all scribbling away on that, and please drop your questions into the Q&A so I don't get them all at the end, and I can manage that for the speakers concerned. So without further ado, thank you for that, Michelle. I now turn to Adrian Carrington, Head of Station Infrastructure, Transport for Wales, an expert in his field, and take it away, Adrian. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Morning, everyone. Just wait for the slides to come up. I've got a few slides. Okay, thank you. So I'm Adrian Carrington, Head of Station Infrastructure for Transport for Wales. So my responsibilities are for all of the stations that we have in Wales. So there's 248 stations and 2 interchanges. So that means the buildings on the stations, the implementation of projects and the spend of our capital into our stations, along with the interface with other bodies such as Network Rail or local authorities that are delivering things to our stations. So when we look at our stations, we've got 55 staff, so you'll know some of the big ones. We've got Cardiff Central, we've got Swansea, we've got Newport, then we've got some on the borders, Shrewsbury, Chester. But there's a lot of local unstaffed stations which are key for the communities that they serve. There's 193 of those which are local stations in rural areas, West, North Wales, Mid Wales, that really are key for people. Those stations are either owned by Network Rail, and Kevin will come on later, or Amey Infrastructure Wales, which is the Cardiff Valleys network. So we've got owners of the stations. We lease all of those stations, but we have the autonomy to invest into them. They're categorized depending on several factors, and I'll come on to a bit of categorization in a second and how we do that. But investment into stations comes from many people. We've got our own TfW, which I've said. We've got Network Rail doing investment and renewals into stations. We've got the Department for Transport. We got third parties such as local authorities, community groups wanting to do small projects, all large sort of the integrated projects. And the key drivers for the investment there are customer demand. So we do research with our customers. What do they need? What do they want? The requirements there. The multimodal connectivity. So we have in TfW the T network of different modes of transport. That's the trains, which you'd see. That's the buses. That's the light rail, which we'll see coming. Taxis, community transport, active travel, all types of transport, but trying to bring this in as one multimodal process from door to door, and commercialization. So driving these schemes, driving some of the higher benefit commercial activities that could go on at these locations. And certainly Cardiff Bus Interchange has had some commercial activity there, and other locations that we put in. Can we take space at stations and use it either commercially or for community? Lots of unused space at our stations. Make sure that it's to a standard where it can be used and customers can use it for different types of activity. If I can go on to the next slide. So just a little bit on station categorization. So this is how we look at what we're going to do at stations, what should be done at stations. We benchmark this. We use a data-led approach. We look at how people want to move through the station. So we've got their intermodality, the bus routes, the cycle parking, the car parking. What do people want to do at this station? How can we help with that? What is the rail service through that station? If people are coming to the trains, what routes are served? And we'll equally look at the routes and the stopping patterns and the train service that serves those locations, depending on the demand. And we'll look at the facilities. So we've got facilities at stations being key for customers, with toilets, ticket offices, ticketing facilities, lighting, CCTV, all the type of enhancements, customer information, all the types of enhancements that customer wants at our stations. We'll look at the data that's collected through surveys. So we've done some surveys, you can see back in 2019, but lots and lots of surveys go on to understand what customers may want at our station. And we look at the place, we look at the population, we look at what's within 400 meters of that station and beyond, and the employment around that station. So lots and lots of things we look at, which starts to look at how we categorize the station and how that might be invested in. And go on to the next one. That's more of a pictorial. So we've got 4 main categories of stations. There are subcategories, but we're looking at a major plus hub. So that's a big station. That's Cardiff Central, with lots and lots of activity around it. A major hub, which is more of your Swanseas, Newport, Chester. It's a big station. It's a big interchange, with customers going through in their millions at those stations. But passing through a lot rather than it being a sort of destination. Moderate hub is more of your smaller locations, where we have some facilities. We may have a ticket office, something at places like Carmarthen, which is an interchange with the Trawsfynydd Cymru, or Aberystwyth, Machynlleth, those sort of locations where there is activity, there is a demand from customers, and there are generally staff at those locations. Then the minor hub, this is a lot of our stations, more community based. It's got less facilities at the station, but there's still a demand for certain types of activity and facilities. If I can just move on from that one, please. So there's a little bit more how they compare. It does say major plus is strategically important, and actually I'll touch on Cardiff Central now, being our major hub. What's happening at Cardiff Central with funding from multiple organisations, DfT, Welsh Government, Network Rail, Cardiff Capital Region, TfW. We're seeing a transformation of Cardiff Central. Starting, so we've seen the Cardiff Bus Interchange already happened at Cardiff Central. That's got 14 bus bays. It links to local bus services. It allows a connection directly from the front of Cardiff Central Station, just across Central Square, into Cardiff Cardiff and the surrounding areas for onward transport. At the rear, we see a new car park. Effectively, it's called Multimodal Transport Hub. As it does have cycling facilities inside, it will have taxis, it will have pick up and drop off, but it will replace the south side car park. So that's looking to open probably in the next 4 or 5 weeks. But with that happening at Cardiff Central, it releases the ability to bring a tram in from Cardiff Bay. So that's currently underway. It brings in the ability to add more commercial and more residential potentially through the land that Network Rail will lease. And it brings customer improvements to the south and the north parts of Cardiff Central and adding in commercial activity there. So a big scheme like Cardiff Central is happening, and it will start in earnest in the new year. And you'll see quite a lot of work there. But it's all about bringing everything into one place. That one hub of Cardiff Central brings all of those modes of transport into one place. And we're looking at that in certain areas, and I'll come on to some examples in a few minutes. But we've got major hub, we've got moderate hub, we've got minor hub. So all of those we'll get a look at in different areas and what we might want to do at those locations with some local input. If I can move on. So this is what's happening and what's coming. So I'll go on to the next one. I'll just go through that. So some projects have been completed. There's lots of things going on, but Porth Interchange, so that is actually fully integrating a station at Porth in the Rhondda Valley with a new bus station. So the buses are integrated there. There is 6 or 7 bus stands. There is the ticket office for the station. There is the 2 platform station adjacent. All of this is integrated. The footbridge is integrated. The customer information, the ability to park cycles there, the local sort of area. It's got CCTV. It's got all of the things that we want to try and bring into a more local interchange. When you compare it to Cardiff Bus Interchange, which is a big building, it's built in a city centre. It's run very similarly as one, but Porth Interchange is more of the blueprint, let's say, for station interchanges across our network. And a little bit on the accessibility there. There's access for all schemes funded by DfT. Across our stations, you'll see them recently at Flint, Cwmbran, Abergavenny. There's one going down into Tenby, all funded by DfT, delivered by Network Rail. But equally, we're replicating that across the Cardiff Valleys, where we're delivering them as TfW at locations such as Cathays, at Ynys Wen, into new stations at Crewys Road, and also into Dinas Rhondda. So we've done a few of those across the valleys, and as part of that scheme, tactile paving has gone in at every single station that we have. But these are things that have gone on already. There's a lot more going on, and I was just going to go through a few of the things that either we're delivering or other people are delivering across our network. So I can just go on to the next one. So that's Bangor, so North Wales. This is a little bit of an interchange. This is the local authority working with us and a designer. So that's the station building that you can see on this drawing, but it adds in the ability for buses to come in there, adds in the ability for additional taxis to come in there, for some spaces for persons with reduced mobility, some areas of waiting space on the platform and refurbishing platform buildings, and also bringing in some cycle facilities and some better routes for people walking to the station. So lots of work going on there, and actually changing the look and feel of these stations to be more TfW, getting the signage right, getting the placemaking right. Lots of work going on Bangor, and as part of the overall Network North Wales investment, which is currently going on, looking that Bangor could hopefully be delivered in the next year. I'll go on to the next one. Cardiff Parkway. So Cardiff Parkway is one which is a third-party developer. This is coming along. It's got its planning permission now. This is a This is a 4-platform station on the main line between Cardiff and Newport, with a lot of activity around it, office blocks and commercial activity. It also links into the Burns Report stations, which are additional stations between Cardiff and Newport, for the demand that there is between Cardiff and Newport. So that's been worked through as well. But quite a lot in this area of demand between Cardiff and Newport, with actually nothing for East Cardiff and the area to Newport. Quite a big gap of 10 or 12 miles, with not a lot for customers to use, other than a bus connection which goes through quite a lot of housing estates and is really a local bus. I can go on from that one. Llanelli, again, a local authority scheme, this one, just working with a local authority. The area of Llanelli station is quite run down, looking at what we might do to create more parking facilities there, as well as cycling facilities, pick up and drop off, areas for buses to come in, and be more of an integrated solution at Llanelli. It's a very busy station for us. Lots of people going into Swansea from Llanelli, as well as further afield. So it's looking at how the station could become a sort of hub, adding in all these extra facilities to it. It's recently received an access for all footbridge, which customers are using. It's got a small cafe there, and it's got a ticket office open for about 8 hours a day. So it's just building up the offering there in an area that's not well used. Let's go on again. Wrexham General, so Wrexham Gateway. So there's an overall program of works at Wrexham as part of a local authority scheme called Wrexham Gateway. The station building is grade 2 listed. You can see that in the top left-hand corner. That's an impression of what it will look like, but it's actually bringing facilities to Wrexham. Football club's doing quite well as well at the moment, so that's driving people into Wrexham. But looking at that area in front of the station, looking at how an interchange might work, some better facilities, making that more of a plaza in front of the station. You see on the right-hand drawing, you've got the station building, sort of the big long rectangle in the middle with the road going over it, but then a sort of more a pleasant area for people, and more of a plaza with buses coming in behind that, and an area for buses. So again, another interchange, bringing connections to the local community, but also driving some commercial activity. What can we do in that station building and that new sort of interchange building to bring commerciality to this? And the wider scheme that is Wrexham Gateway does things over by the football ground, the university, and improves all of that area and connectivity to the station. I'll just go on to the next one. This is Newport. Again, same sort of thing, but working with a different local authority here with different demands. This one is an interchange at the front where we've got the taxi rank. Big station for us, this being in our top 3 or 4 of footfall, including people interchanging between trains at this location. But they're linking to local buses. We're also looking here, we've got quite a big space on the rear side at the car park. That car park at the moment is full every single day. Looking at what we might do over on the opposite side, as people do drive to Newport to travel onwards towards London and the north. And further on, that isn't Newport, that's Caerphilly. I don't know why that says Newport, but that's Caerphilly. So this is one that TfW are working with. This is sort of along the model of Porth. So we've done Porth with an integrated facility. This is Caerphilly, working with Caerphilly Council and the Welsh Government. It's a £42 million scheme, so it's a big scheme. But that is what the station frontage will look like. Down at track level, which is below that glass canopy, is 2 platforms, refurbished station buildings, an access for all footbridge, which it doesn't currently have, and bus bays. So there's a bus station at the moment, but completely redefined. It'll have you can see that's an option of a bicycle storage at the front. Also, commercial and community rooms will be created there, alongside the alongside the platform. So complete rebuild of the station in a sense, other than the actual platforms themselves. A big scheme, but it's looking likely that this scheme has got planning permission and will go on to the next phase in the next few months. And the next one. That's it, I think. So that's everything. We're doing a lot at Transport for Wales. We're working with a lot of people. Totally open to discussing anything that anyone wants to do at their station. See how we can make it work. We do need to speak to our landlords at Network Rail or AMI Infrastructure Wales, but we've got good collaboration across all of those areas. And lots and lots of good things going on year. We've got plans for things going way into the future. So I think that's everything from me this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adrian, for that extremely comprehensive, rapid, I think in just over 10 minutes tour of all parts of Wales. I mean, I don't know about you, but I have been on some webinars where sometimes it might just be focused on the M4 corridor, but I think that was a very comprehensive roundup showing the range and the typology and the rigor that has gone in from Transport for Wales with its partners, including Network Rail and others, looking at the different needs and requirements in support of the TfW network of the one timetable, one network, one team going forward for the benefit of people coming to and from Wales going forward. I think that was a really excellent roundup. So thank you very much for that, Adrian. Turning now to our third speaker this morning is which will develop on the points that Adrian has covered, is Kevin Collins, the Director of Enhancements for the Integrated Infrastructure Team. And Kevin, huge experience over 35 years managing complex projects and manages a team sort of around 100 with a significant portfolio in excess of 200 million, with a range of schemes that supports the infrastructure of rail for both passenger and freight across Wales and Western and region. And I'm really looking forward to this bit to complement the other speakers. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Kevin Collins. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael, and good morning, Bore da, everybody. So I'm Kevin Collins, as Michael said, so I look after the Enhancements Directorate for Network Rail in Wales and Western. So hopefully my slides will pop up in a second, and I'll then just talk you through some of the details, first of all, of the size and extent of my directorate, and then do a little spotlight on Wales as per the subject of the webinar. So if I could go to the first slide, please, and the next. So as I mentioned, we're one region, Wales and Western, with two routes, Wales and borders. Mustn't forget the borders. We often forget about that very important part of our network, and then obviously the Western route. So my team is spread over 4 offices, over 100 staff, and my turnover is between 200 and 250 million pound per annum, which is a real big investment and a show of confidence in the rail network from the UK government and indeed third-party investors as well, and also the Welsh government. So it's really pleasing to see the levels of investment. We recently had the SR25, the Comprehensive Spending Review for this year, and my presentation will concentrate on some of the new projects. We've got a lot of projects in flight across the region, and literally going from a £1 million platform extension right up to £350 million station redevelopments. So that's a little bit of a feel for the business in the region in numbers. So as I said, I'll move on now to a spotlight for the Wales and Borders project. So as I said, I've concentrated on the new projects because that obviously is what we're looking at, will stimulate the transport-led development in Wales. So Adrian did touch upon the Burn stations, which is a really exciting development. Effectively, there's going to be 5 new stations on the South Wales Main Line at Cardiff East, Newport West, Somerton, Llanwern, and 1 station serving Magor and Undy. Now, we will be working in partnership with Transport for Wales on these schemes to have a joint delivery approach. So really looking forward to bringing all the economic development around that to close that 12-mile gap that Adrian mentioned. Actually, we're already advanced on the project. One of the projects you see a bit further down is the South West Wales Relief Lines upgrade, which is a project currently my team are working on. So that will see an upgrade of the relief lines to the line speed on the relief lines to match that of the mains. And that is a vital precursor and enabler for Cardiff Parkway and the Burn stations. That will increase the line speed to allow more stopping patterns and to provide more resilience into the network, and without adversely affecting freight, because that's a heavily used freight area as well. So really looking forward to getting to work on those two schemes. The second scheme on the list is Cardiff West Junction. So that's at Cardiff station. And as West will intimate, that's the country end of the station. So we will be doing a complete remodeling and an enhancement of the layout there to allow for an increase in services on the City Line, and again provide more flexibility and importance resilience. Padeswood Sidings is another project we was in the comprehensive spending review. It's a little bit more than a siding scheme. It's in North East Wales. It's a very important freight scheme in its own right, because we've got a very important freight customer there, Heidelberg, who have a cement works. And the current arrangement of getting trains in and out of that cement works does create a capacity problem and a congestion problem on the main lines. So we're going to, improve that to, provide a better service for our freight customer. And secondly, it will also then provide better train paths and remove that congestion, so we can increase resilience capacity on that important corridor, which is the Liverpool to Wrexham line. And then the last thing then is the North Wales mainline level crossings. So again, a really important safety intervention where we will be removing 4 level crossings, and that will facilitate the May 2026 timetable change, which again will improve the timetable for passengers, and in these particular areas will also prove a benefit for local users, line-side neighbours and the like. So some really exciting schemes there. I think the headline figure was 445 million in Wales, which is a real comprehensive investment. It's really important then, therefore, that we as an industry are seen to use the taxpayers' money wisely. We are competing with the lines of health, education, defence, etc. So that vote of confidence in this from the government through via the DfT was really encouraging. And as I say, it's really pleasing as well, not only to see that it's providing benefits to rail users, it's providing benefits to line-side neighbours and also to freight companies. We've seen a huge growth in freight in Wales over the last couple of years, and the tonnage being moved across our network now is increasing year on year. And I'm pleased to say that the performance as well, working in conjunction with Transport for Wales, has been fantastic to around our freight customers. We've got one of the best performing freight networks in the area. So that's really encouraging. On to the next slide. Adrian did mention some Access for Alls and Tenby. Yeah, we entered into the build contract for Tenby last week, and we'll already be on site by the end of this month doing some of the enabling works. So I was down there myself a week before last, and there's a heavily used tourist area, and it's really not pleasing to see customers lugging suitcases over the existing bridge, and disabled passengers using the Barrow crossing. So we're really delighted to get this funding through to start this critically important scheme. It's probably one of the major projects down west that hasn't got step-free access following the completion of Llanelli Access for All, which is my hometown. So I was delighted to see the interchange proposals as well, Adrian. As you say, much needed important investment for that area. We're also then looking at Access for Alls at Warbon, Whitchurch in Shropshire, not Cardiff, and Neath and Shotton. And Shotton's for those who know the station, it's a high level, low level. It's sort of 2 stations in one. So that's going to be quite a comprehensive civil engineering project, which again, I'm looking forward to starting. So again, a good mixture of schemes around North, South and West Wales. and schemes that benefit, as I said earlier, rail users, line-side neighbours, and our freight customers. So that's it for my presentation. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you very much, Kevin, for again fulfilling the brief really well, covering all parts of Wales, size of schemes, and the practical delivery of that of transport-led development in Wales. I think for the wider audience, being living up in North East Wales, I think the Padeswood scheme that Kevin referred to, I think, is worthy of particular note of its wider integration into energy reform. That the plant there with Heidelberg is being linked to the HyNet project up in that part of the world with carbon sequestration. So there's a great role of passenger freight actually supporting the energy revolution towards the low carbon and net zero for cement production for construction and development. And I think that's a really neat example of that one of, though obviously people and freight are important, that actually linking to the wider energy part of a wider system of advanced manufacturing in that part of northeast Wales. So many thanks for that, Kevin. We've got some time for questions now from the audience. So if you haven't already, please pop them in there so I've got time to manage them and make sure that everybody gets a fair crack at answering questions. A question to the panel. I think this one is coming to Adrian around stations, and was if there were any publicly available timelines for local stations in Cardiff, and I think your reference was made to the inner city Cruis Road station site, and is there anything on that as part of the wider, I guess, public transport development in Cardiff?
Yeah, so we've got Cruis Road and questions particularly on Cruis Road. That's going through some design work at the moment, some approvals. We're looking at both Cruis Road and potentially Butetown, which is the other station on the Cardiff Bay line, to be open early to mid 2027. So we've probably got 18 months or so. Maybe 2 years before the stations open. They're the ones that are being constructed at the moment. You'll see Butetown's already got one platform almost constructed, but the works to Cardiff Bay and the Cardiff Bay station, which is being rebuilt, is still going on. So that will allow us to run that station. The only other station that is in addition to those is the Crossrail, as we're calling it, station, which goes into the back of Cardiff Central Station. So that's a tram link, a light rail link from Cardiff Bay. So Cruis Road, Butetown, and Cardiff Central are all happening. They're all in design, all being constructed already. The additional platform at Ynys Wen, which is another station that's been completely rebuilt and is currently closed, that station will open for the December timetable change. So we'll see Ynys Wen back on our network from the end of December. There's also been some work at Deeside, but that's still being developed, and whether we will do another station at Deeside is something that we're still working through.
Thank you very much for that, Adrian. A question for Michelle, which I'll bookend with a question from myself as well. And I guess it's benefit for the wider audience and particularly pertinent during CT week, Michelle. How can organisations get involved with providing funding for community transport schemes? And linked to that, my bit around how do we ensure that community transport considerations are brought in properly at the design and planning stage? I've seen a number of consultancies on the call this morning, so they often talk about stakeholder engagement, but how do we ensure that practically happens? So just to recap, how do organisations get involved with providing funding for community transport schemes, and how does the needs of the CT sector, not just sort of conveying it, but actually like today as part of CT week, those things are actually embedded at the design stage, and the principles like Adrian picks up as part of the station development, and Kevin ultimately delivers through the infrastructure to support that.
Thank you, Michael. just on the first part then, in terms of funding for CT schemes, we are obviously waiting for more information regarding the bus bill. So the Climate Change, Environment and Infrastructure Committee provided a report following scrutiny of the bus bill recently, and they have put forward a suggestion for statutory guidance for the community transport sector to be integrated into the wider network and what the funding arrangements might look like for that. So that's positive in terms of that sort of like the core funding element potentially for CT. Otherwise, community transport schemes, I personally think that a lot of schemes might benefit from bringing in perhaps greater expertise, business expertise and skills onto their boards potentially. And that might be around professionals such as those in the room today, just thinking about, is there capacity within your own lives in terms of perhaps just helping out? It could be as a board member, or it could actually just be providing some pro bono sort of like consultancy support, really, because obviously these are schemes that are run on a voluntary basis. The board members are all volunteers. It's not like a paid position. And it can be really difficult to recruit people because it is such a challenging context for community transport providers, funding wise. So any support like that in terms of like a strategic support element could actually be incredibly useful and widely valued by community transport organisations. So it could just be as simple as finding out if there's a community transport operator in your area who might just welcome a chat, and it could simply be perhaps linking them up with other useful contacts that you have, rather than having to sort of like think about supporting them with funding efforts particularly. It is that broader sort of package of skills that I think so many professionals can offer in that guidance side of things. They do a lot of community fundraising, grant fundraising, commercial sponsorships sometimes, but they do have to be quite careful about that, you know, as registered charities. So any support that you think could be useful, I think that they would be very appreciative, really, if that is an option. And of course, you know, the other side around bringing in the CT sector needs properly at design stage. I think it's really just about reaching out to us at the CT sector, at the CTA, really, just to have a conversation, because my director, Gemma Lelliot, she was really sorry that she couldn't be here today, because, you know, she welcomes just having a conversation with anybody, as do all of us in the team, just to see how we can perhaps link you up with underrepresented groups with different disabilities. Like Michael mentioned at the beginning, actually, around people with hidden disabilities, we sometimes automatically have a default setting to think wheelchair user, but there's so many different disabilities, and our members have contact with such a wide range of people with different and, you know, diverse needs, that it could be quite a useful conduit in terms of just helping to sort of get different perspectives on design at a very early stage. So that's one way. Just I'll pop my email details into the chat, and anybody's very welcome to contact, you know, follow it up afterwards. But as well, we are supporting TfW with their regional engagement around developing a proposed base network bus plans in the different 4 corporate joint council areas. So colleagues in South Wales have been supporting TfW regional engagement in that area, and I'm having a chat with TfW in the next couple of weeks around supporting them when they come up to North Wales to do that engagement activity. Just another quick point before I finish was that TfW have been fantastic in terms of also just being open to discussions. So, for example, there's a Dial-A-Ride scheme in Denbighshire, which is having discussions about potentially having a vehicle sited at Colwyn Bay Station. and doing some joint work onward travel for people coming into Colwyn Bay Station to then be able to access the Mountain Zoo. If anybody knows North Wales, there's a really lovely Colwyn Bay Mountain Zoo, but it's quite difficult to get to without getting a taxi from the station. So it's quite interesting just how these conversations can open up quite different solutions for the travelling passenger. And obviously any minibus that is sited there at Colwyn Bay would be fully accessible. So again, it's just making sure that people with a wide range of needs have access to tourism destinations as well. So yes, any support is hugely welcome, Michael, I would just say.
So thank you very much for that great piece for community transport, and I think it's also relevant here, Adrian, to give a shout out for the work with Transport for Wales through the accessible and inclusion work and the great work they've done. That I know some of the CLT committee members are involved with that, and really helpful with that. I think I've got time quickly. I'm just looking at the organiser here. If I can squeeze in a last question, and Kevin, I'd like to bring you in here on this one as part of the rich tapestry we have of relationships and collaboration here in Wales and Western, is around aligning the projects that you were talking about and transport development with the economic priorities of the local area. I guess that could be an hour in itself, but if it's just a thumbnail sketch of how the future programme links in, because that's what the title of today's webinar is, so with the economic priorities of the different parts of Wales. An impossible task, I know, but just give us a thumbnail sketch in the remaining minutes. That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, Michael. As I say, we at Network Rail, we look at the lens not of the next 1 or 2 years. It's very much a long-term planning. So these schemes are planned sort of 5, 10, 15 years out. We use various demographic data such as passengers and local demand, etc. And also we very much look in the market for match funding as well from people like the Welsh Government, local authorities as well, because that actually drives development as well. But for us, it's really about usership, ridership on the lines and matching today's demand to tomorrow's delivery.
That's great. Thank you very much, Kevin. I'm up against the clock, so I'm sorry I can't take the last question. But if I can just say that the webinar has been recorded and will be made available. There'll be an email coming out with that, and I encourage any participants today to follow up with the respective people there. And I'd really like to, on behalf of Waterfront and CLT Cymru, thank our 3 speakers, Michelle Wright, Kevin Collins, and Adrian Carrington, for their insight and giving up their time this morning, and for you, the audience, for coming along this morning. And that there's an excellent programme of further waterfront development opportunities coming up, including one I think is in November on development infrastructure in Wales, which is available on their website. So again, thank you very much to everybody today, and I wish you the rest of a good day. Thank you very much.